You might not see this in the economy today, but next month when half these projects that we're supposed to be getting off the ground aren't moving,
Right.
and workers aren't working, that's going to start showing up.
Welcome to Forged and Focused, the podcast where we dive deep into the issues shaping the future of American manufacturing. I'm your host, John Ward. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, Stephen Borg with the Vogel Group, who played a key role in our recent Washington, D.C. fly-in with STI SPFA. Over 2 packed days, we met with lawmakers across both the House and the Senate to advocate for the American steel fabrication industry. From trade policy and tariffs to workforce development and infrastructure funding, we brought real stories and real challenges to the table. In this episode, we'll unpack what we learned, what's at stake, and how policy decision in D.C. ripple through our shops, our workers, and our communities. Whether you're a fabricator, a policymaker, or just someone who cares about the industry and future of American manufacturing, this conversation is for you. Let's get into it. Steve, welcome. Super excited to have you on the podcast this morning, especially with this being the inaugural episode. We had a great time in D.C. back in July with the STI SPFA fly-in, and really just wanted to chat with you and get an overview of what's going on and where you see things moving forward with this industry. So start it off. I'd love to get a little bit on your background, your story, and how you landed at the Vogel Group.
Yeah, thanks, John. Great to see you again. Really excited to do this with you. Appreciate being the inaugural guest. Hopefully we set a high ceiling for everyone moving forward as well. But great to see you. Really appreciate you wanting me to join you today. So again, Steve Borg. I'm principal at Vogel Group. We represent STI SPFA, which is how you and I first connected during the fly-in. Vogel Group, we're a bipartisan, multi-client government relations, public affairs firm in Washington, D.C. So kind of like most lobbyists, got my start working in government. I kind of randomly fell into an opportunity right after college to work in the State House of Illinois down in Springfield.
Because you were looking to be a teacher, right? That was the initial.
I was.
Okay.
Yes. Originally went to college to be an elementary school teacher. I like the joke now that I'm working with Congress, I still get to work with kids.
There you go.
But was originally looking at being a teacher, had some teaching opportunities, a couple business opportunities through my father. But he had always been really engaged and interested in politics, and that kind of flowed down into me a little bit as well. So saw this opportunity to work in the State House. Thought it would be a fun year or two while I figured out what I really wanted to do. And lo and behold, one of the state representatives got elected to Congress, asked me to come work in his D.C. office. And, I was like, hey, can't really turn that down.
No, that's a great opportunity for sure.
Do that for 1 year, 2 years while I figure out what I really want to do. Ended up working for him for 10 and a half years, which I learned something new every single day, be it about a policy issue, be it about how our government works or doesn't work, be it about myself or humanity. It was a great experience. And then again, just kind of moving forward, at that point, married, had, started having kids. So roots were starting to set in the DC area. So, when you get a little tired of, the government experience, the next step is government relations. So, joined, I've been a lobbyist now for about 15 years.
Okay.
Where I was when I first left the Hill, was at a small government relations firm, another multi-client firm, but was about 4.5 years ago now, we merged our firm into Vogel Group here, and it's been a great fit. We got great clients, great colleagues, so it's really been a great place to work.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's a fantastic story, and we greatly appreciate all the work you do on the Hill. And I can totally understand catching that bug. When you're walking around the halls and having the conversations and seeing the hustle and bustle in DC, you can feel that energy and excitement.
Uh, it grabs you pretty hard.
Yes, it definitely
I'll tell
does.
you what, our first apartment when I was first married was 3 blocks away from the Capitol. So every day I was walking to work, I'm walking right past the Supreme Court,
Yeah,
right past the Capitol, right past Library of Congress. There were days where I literally would just pause and just look around at everything that I was walking by on my way to work, and places that I got to be involved in. And yeah,
yeah. I had the same experience when I was there. You're walking the halls, you're looking at the buildings, and you just start thinking about all the historic events that have taken place and discussions and meetings, and you really get a good sense of patriotism and wanting to be part of something and
absolutely.
moving the country forward in a positive direction. So it's
Well,
definitely energizing.
Well, and that's the beauty of our system, right? Is that we have a system where the people have a voice, right? And
Yes.
I think we saw that during the fly-in that you referenced, that we can get into here a little bit later.
Hmm.
But just the ability for us to have those conversations, share our voice, our concerns, our desires. It's a wonderful opportunity that hopefully we don't take advantage of.
Yeah.
Too few times that we actually take advantage of it every opportunity we get.
You mentioned you guys are bipartisan at the Vogel Group. What makes your team and your approach unique to advocacy when working with organizations like STI, SPFA?
Yeah, great question, John. So you'll get all sorts of different government relations firms, public affairs firms here in Washington, D.C. And I mean, if we're being honest, in state capitals, throughout the country as well. I think what really sets us apart, again, being bipartisan, being multi-client, there's a ton of firms like that. I latest count, I think there's around 10,000 registered federal lobbyists at this point,
Wow.
which
Yeah.
kind of gives you, I mean, it's a whole industry,
Oh,
to
yeah.
be quite honest with you, right? And our industry is, kind of your network. And everybody here has a network, right? Everybody here has high level government relationships, et cetera. So what really sets us apart, I think, is a lot of clients will come to us and say, hey, we really want this one piece of legislation passed, right? Let's just call it HR 123.
Okay.
This is our main priority. We need you guys to help us get this signed into law, right? And a lot of firms, I think, would be like, cool, put the horse blinders on. They're solely focused on HR 123. Maybe they don't take the time to really understand the intricacies of your business and industry, and they just kind of focus on that
Just that
one
one
issue.
one
And
issue. Yeah.
they could be successful, they could not be successful, right? We try to take a holistic kind of view of all of our clients. Even if, let's just say, STI, SPFA came in and said, we just want you focused on trade and tariffs. That's all we care about, right? But we don't take the opportunity to really get to know the industry. We don't take the opportunity to understand your business, other members' businesses, and we just focus on that. We would be missing a whole lot of opportunities to impact your guys' business on things like workforce development, for instance, right? Which is a big priority for the
Yeah.
industry at this moment.
And you guys did a great job with that for us. I know it teed me up with a lot of great topics to discuss with each of my meetings, where we talked about the tariffs, we talked about workforce development, we talked about infrastructure funding. So you guys did a phenomenal job of coaching us, teaching us of the different topics, how to talk about them, talk about our companies, to the point where I've made a lot of connections with a lot of my representatives here in North Carolina, to where I believe I've got 3 visits coming up here in the next few months where they want to come visit our facility. So you guys did a
that's
phenomenal job. Yeah.
And that's awesome. And that's, John, that's when the members of Congress, and you can spread this to your local county
Right.
commissioners or state representatives as well, when they can kind of get their hands dirty, put a hard hat on, see what you guys are doing, on a daily basis. It really brings those messages home,
Yes.
of, okay, this is how trade impacts you guys. This is how workforce is so important to you guys, because this isn't like you couldn't go out and hire me, to come be a welder for your company, right? Being able to explain but showcase in real life, like welding's a very high skilled trade that
Yes.
takes years to perfect, tons of training, right? And you can't just hire people off the street to come fill those jobs. And I think sometimes that gets lost on a lot of elected officials.
Yeah.
But when you open up your business and allow them to come in, it's just such a great way for that message to really set in and become real.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, let's dive into some of the topics.
yeah,
Tariffs. I mean, you can't talk about the news, watch the news, talk to people, especially in our industry, without talking about tariffs. The impact there have been real. We're feeling right now. President Trump, when he was rolling these out, he basically said there will be some short-term pain, and we're feeling it right now. How do you see this role of the Section 232 and 301 tariffs evolving in the next legislative cycle?
yeah, great question, John. And I was going to make a joke. Tariffs, what are you talking about? But it's not just you guys. I mean, every industry for the most part is feeling the impact of these right now. It's an interesting topic and subject, because I do think we need to separate out the 232, 301 tariffs from the reciprocal tariffs, if you will, right? So saying tariffs as a whole, I think we need to be a little more nuanced in that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So the reciprocal tariffs, President Trump utilized a law that had never really been utilized before to implement tariffs. As you can imagine, that has come under some litigation, court review, and actually that's been stepped up in the Supreme Court here next month in November.
Right.
Is going to hear that case. I think they go in, their next session starts in a week or so, I think, is the kickoff date. But that case is supposed to be November. So that'll have a huge,
So definitely something we need to keep our eye on, is that November
absolutely,
Supreme Court.
absolutely, November Supreme Court case on reciprocal tariffs.
Yes.
Will be massive, because if the Supreme Court kind of throws that authority out, that is going to need to involve Congress moving forward on a lot of those reciprocal tariffs. When it comes to 232, 301, those have long-term been established as authorities that presidents can use, and we've seen first term of President Trump, he used 232, 301. President Biden continued 232 tariffs as well. So that's been a well-established kind of authority that presidents have. So I definitely think, and you've seen just a couple days ago, the president coming out with further 232 tariffs on Canadian timber and some of the kind of derivative products like some furniture, cabinetry, etc. So I definitely think the 232, 301 are going to continue to be a big tool that the president uses. With that kind of being well established as an authority he can use, he can kind of expand those, pull them back however he sees fit at any point. We have been having conversations on behalf of you guys, on behalf of our other clients as well, with members of Congress, just keeping them kind of up to date on how a lot of those tariffs are impacting you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been able to have kind of behind the scenes conversations with the administration on that, because there's some intricacies to all these, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah, it's across the board. A lot of different
So
impacts.
yeah, I think it's important for us to continue to tell our story to everybody, right?
Yes.
Be it the U.S. Trade Representative, which is going to continue cranking these things out. They're continuing to have negotiations with foreign countries on quote unquote trade deals. We've seen a couple of those roll out, but trade is going to continue to be a big issue, I think, for the rest of this administration.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of different challenges come across our desk. One of the biggest ones is when a PO is placed. So we've got some material that's going to be hitting the docks from India, from a large flange manufacturer that we just couldn't find them in the U.S. Well, this purchase order was placed well before all the tariff discussions. It was early in the year, and this $600,000 order is going to have a 50% tariff on it when it hits the port this coming week. And so that's a $300,000 cost that, of course, wasn't in our budget. We're passing the tariffs on to our client. And those are the nuances that are hard to get your mind around, because you really wish there was a date of, hey, if the purchase order was placed before they were intact, enforced, then the tariff shouldn't be on those components. And that's been a little bit of a challenge to navigate from our end and from our client's end. People just don't know what the cost is going to be.
Yeah, completely. I was speaking with a chief of staff to a senator yesterday, and we were he was asking me about some of the trade impacts for our clients, and I brought you guys up. I brought a couple other clients up with that same exact story, right?
Yeah.
And John, to be quite honest with you, I mean, if that's coming to port in a week, over the next week, that could, I mean, the tariff could double, or it could,
right,
get cut down to 1%, right? And so you're sitting there trying to have to figure out, well, we got $300,000 here, that we got to figure out, but within that week, it could go to 450, or it could go down to 10,000, right? And just the confusion that causes. We've actually a couple of our other clients, and I'm sure you guys are starting to see this as well with your business. Customers are starting to take a pause on projects.
Oh yeah, we're feeling that,
and they're
the
just
board
saying
right
like, time out. Like we're just going to sit here until we get a little more certainty. And that is starting. Members of Congress are starting to, I'll say, feel that pain as well.
Yes.
Because so many people are coming to them and saying, look, you might not see this in the economy today, but next month, when half these projects that we're supposed to be getting off the ground aren't moving,
right,
and workers aren't working, that's going to start showing up.
And we're feeling that impact right now. I mean, our client base, the mega projects, the large projects, they're all teed up. They're all paused right now because they literally cannot sit down and come up with a reasonable cost.
Yeah.
They can't guesstimate where all these materials are coming from and what the tariff's going to be. So, If you're working on a $1 billion project, is that project going to be 1 billion or is it going to be 2 billion?
Right.
So until we get some certainty around the tariffs with each country, we're just not going to see any mega projects hit the books.
Yeah.
And the interesting side, though, is jumping into this next piece I'd like to talk about is, the foreign countries that are not playing fair in the market. And I'm going to call out China, South Korea, those countries that subsidize their own, groups that are working there, their own companies in their country, so that they always have work. And those are the ones are the bad actors in the world that are really undermining what we're doing. We're losing jobs to China for less than our material cost.
Yeah.
Those are a lot of the stories that I shared with folks on the Hill of how do you compete when you got groups overseas that are shipping finished product to the U.S. cheaper than I can buy materials.
Yeah. Well, and those are the type of stories, John. I remember you in one of the meetings we were in together sharing that story, and you could just see the look on the staffer's face go, but that doesn't even make sense. Like, what are you talking about, right?
Yeah.
So sharing these stories that, like, no, this isn't just theory. This is happening on a daily basis. Really opens their eyes to the huge impact it is. And I think, unfortunately, John, and we've seen this, right? So, I mean, you look at 232-301, right? A lot of the background on that was trying to stop China from flooding the market, here
Dump and plate.
domestically. Yeah. You see Congress introducing and moving forward bipartisan pieces of legislation like level the playing field, which tries to stop China from, and other countries, but mainly China, from sending products to other countries and then shipping it to the U.S. So trying to find a loophole there, right? They're not going to stop. They're going to find every loophole that they can. And actually, a couple days ago, the president expanded some of the rules and regulations surrounding a lot of these export-import trade practices, because what they were finding was that actually China was starting to use subsidiary companies, pardon
Oh,
me,
yeah.
as the kind of new
The shell. It was
loophole, if you
a
will.
shell game. Yeah. So
Yeah,
you can't say it was
exactly.
a Chinese product coming in.
Yep.
Yeah. We
And so they're cutting down on that. So it is, fortunately for us, I think, most people's eyes, in particular in this administration, but I think on a bipartisan basis as well on Capitol Hill, have been open to those trade practices, and people are paying attention. The unfortunate thing, as I just mentioned, is I mean, they're always going to find some way to get around whatever we do, right? So it's going to constantly be a chase the mouse,
oh yeah. Yeah,
type of situation.
the past 3 decades that I've been in this industry, it first started off with 232 and 301. China was dumping plate. And so there's a lot of protection for the U.S. steel mills to protect all this flat plate that was getting dumped into America. So tariffs got put into place, and then all of a sudden, China got smart. They said, okay, let me take that flat plate. I'm going to roll it into a cylinder, and I'm going to weld it, and then I'm going to drop it in as a component.
Yep.
And so then protection went in to stop that. And then China said, well, if I can't do that, I'm just going to go ahead and build the whole vessel. I'm going to build the heat exchanger, the pressure vessel, and then dump it. Some protections have been put in on that. And now what we're seeing is what you touched on a little bit is now they're trying to go through, let's say, Mexico and trying to get into the U.S. through the USMCA agreement. Yep. So it's like whack-a-mole. I mean, and China's going to find a way to try to get as much work into their country to keep their folks working in the factory. I mean, we all know communism does not survive if their people aren't working. And so they need to get work at whatever cost they can to keep their folks working in the factory 6 days a week.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think that's a great point, John. In what we're talking about here is why it's so important for the association as a whole, people like myself representing the association here in DC, but for members like you to participate in the fly-ins, to
oh yeah.
when you have those members of Congress come tour your facility, to keep giving them real world examples on this,
Mhm.
to show them that, hey, just because you passed that piece of legislation, like, thank you so much. It was a
Right.
huge help.
We got to
But all that
keep the eye
all
on the
that
ball
did
'cause
was
yeah.
turn one faucet off and open another faucet. So we need members like you to continue to showcase how countries are finding new loopholes,
Yeah.
because unfortunately, they're not going to stop.
Now, do you know of any other policy tools beyond the tariffs that could help level the playing field for domestic manufacturers?
Yeah, so we definitely have seen, and I'm sure people heard plenty of talk on the news, or read in articles about the one big beautiful bill,
Mhm.
which was the president's main kind of domestic policy priority when he got sworn in for his second term. That got signed into law here not too long ago. The main crux of it was extending the original, a lot of the tax provisions from his first term, but there was a lot of new tax provisions in there as well. Um, R&D tax credit got expanded, index for inflation finally. You saw new tax provisions where they actually are giving some tax provisions for brand new manufacturing facilities in the United States. They're really focusing on trying to
Bring
reshore
yeah.
and boost domestic manufacturing. So tons of tax provisions that I think will help our companies be able to expand, be able to innovate, and keep competing on a global stage. At the same time, as we just mentioned, trying to protect through other ways as well. But the
Yeah.
the tax provisions are definitely something that's should be a big boost not only to our industry but manufacturing across the country.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, removing that, provision of amortization on the R&D tax
Yep,
credits was huge. Uh,
massive.
yeah, massive, massive change there to really encourage manufacturing to come back to the US.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
So all
a lot of
sorts
good
of
stuff
tax
in the
provisions.
big beautiful bill, a lot of good stuff there.
A- Absolutely.
Yes.
So happy to, if people watching this have questions, I know they can reach out to STI, SPFA, and if need be, those people can get put in touch with me, and we can get them all sorts of background on some more specifics on that. But
No, that's
definitely
great.
something to keep an eye on. As you and your company and other companies start planning ahead for the
Yeah.
future, to make sure you're keeping an eye on all those tax provisions because
Yeah.
they changed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. Let's jump over to, workforce development. What are some of the promising legislative or grassroots efforts that you're seeing that aim to address the skilled trade shortage right now?
Yeah, great question. So as you know, John, workforce development has been a huge issue for a number of years for a number of industries. I think the COVID pandemic really kind of threw gas on that bonfire, if you will. And while I would never want to go back to the pandemic by any stretch of the imagination, it really opened a lot of elected officials' eyes to just how big of an issue workforce is.
Yes.
When we were able to kind of explain to them that, look, this was going on for years before the pandemic and shutdowns hit, and here's how, that really, people started focusing on it a lot more, right? So there's always been bipartisan support for the federal kind of workforce programs. But for the most part, most of those workforce development programs and funding come through the states and local areas as well. So the federal government provides some money and some guardrails to programs and things like that. But I think you're starting to see a lot more, especially on the federal side, a lot more uh, interest in trying to find solutions to this. So one of the big pieces of legislation out there that's starting to gain some pretty dynamic bipartisan support is a piece of legislation called the Dignity Act. Was introduced by Congresswoman Salazar, a Republican from Florida, and Congresswoman Escobar, a Democrat from Texas. They've both sides have gotten some pretty interesting co-sponsors
Hmm.
on that, but what it does is it's kind of a broad immigration slash workforce piece of legislation. And so would shut down the border. So kind of cut off the flow of, people coming into the country illegally. And unfortunately, in a lot of industries, we're seeing those people actually be employed illegally as well,
Right.
through various things. So kind of stops that flow. And then there's provisions in there that say if you've been in the country at least 5 years, you have no criminal record, nothing bad in your background, you can pay a fine and annual fee to legally work in the United States. No path to citizenship, which can be kind of controversial, as you know, but
Right.
kind of opens a pipeline for our companies to legally hire people that we know we need. It's interesting if you kind of rewind and go back to this latest presidential campaign season. President Trump, when he was campaigning, would say, I mean, almost at every campaign stop towards the end of the campaign, look, we're going to get rid of all the bad guys, right? Like they're out. We're rounding them up. We're getting them out. If you have a criminal record, you're not welcome here. But then he would always pivot to, but we're also going to allow a lot of people to legally come into our country. I think with his background in real estate construction, the resort world, if you will, understands that we need some sort of foreign based workforce
Oh,
for our
100%.
economy to work how everyone wants it to work, right?
With our birth rate in the U.S. right now, our GDP will not grow without immigration.
Yeah.
Period. I mean,
And
that's
the
a known
president
fact.
gets it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The president gets it, which is encouraging. The Dignity Act, again, is a bipartisan bill that's getting some pretty, there's a couple pretty liberal members that surprise some people that they would sign on to something, shutting the border
Yeah.
down, and some pretty conservative Republicans as well signing on, because I think both sides realize that workforce is a huge issue that isn't getting better. It's only getting worse until we start focusing on it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now, what are you seeing that the federal government or state governments can do to better support apprenticeship programs and modern training facilities?
Yeah, great question, because I think that's the key, right? To really get this going. Unfortunately, I think we talked when you were here in Washington, D.C. for the fly-in. When we were both in high school, we had shop class. We
Oh, yeah.
had, a bunch of my
Design
friends took
engineering class, wood
yeah,
shop and
yeah,
shop cars. I mean, it was wild what you could do in high
yeah.
school. Yeah, a
I
lot
was
of
going to
good
say a
stuff.
bunch of my buddies did the car mechanic
Oh, yeah.
class, and unfortunately, those all kind of went away for a while. You're starting to see those come back, right?
Yes.
And I think one of the biggest things that regulators can do is kind of ease the pathway for one, students to get involved in kind of career and technical education classes and programs, but two, more importantly, ease kind of the transition from people that, let's just say you have a welder that's worked at your company for 25 years. He's kind of done his thing and is ready to try something else, or uh, you know, uh, do things a little easier. Transition that individual into becoming a teacher
Yeah.
at a high school or CTE, right? Class. Unfortunately, a lot of those current regulations are kind of a roadblock to people to get a teaching certificate. And so I know there's conversations actually in North Carolina going on right now. One kind of innovative ways to test career in technical education students. A lot of the people that want to go into those fields don't like reading books and taking paper tests, and so innovative ways to test the students, but also innovative ways to kind of get experts into the teaching field for those programs. And I think for you guys, for members of STI, one of the big things I would encourage you to do is, if your local high schools have career and technical education programs, make sure they have welding classes and other things that you guys need,
Yeah.
and then volunteer your time, right, to help participate in it, sponsor it
And
programs. So you
that's
might.
exactly what we're doing right now. And we're setting up scholarship award funds. We're trying to get involved as much as we can. I feel we're right on the brink of a good renaissance of the trades. We're seeing it. I think the old adage of, oh, you got to go to college and get a desk job behind a computer. I think those days are over. The cost of college tuition is skyrocketed so high. And what we're seeing with AI right now, entry level jobs are hard to find.
Yeah,
Uh, a lot of the individuals that we know that have just graduated, we've hired a couple of them here. Most of their friends don't have jobs right now.
yeah,
The job
yeah, yeah,
market is really, really hard for an entry level job right now. So we're starting to hear a lot more kids, younger adults start talking about, okay, where can I find a job? And a lot of them are starting to look to the trades.
yeah.
One of the challenges, I think, over the last 30 years, folks have said, the trades are dirty. It's tough work. It's hard. What role do you think leaders need to take in reshaping that narrative? Because with innovation, robotics, it's changed. The old
Oh,
job of
completely.
being in a dirty shop 30 years ago, that's not the way it is today.
Yeah, completely.
So what do you see we can do to change that narrative, and how do we do that in shaping things on Capitol Hill?
Yeah, no, I think that's a one of the biggest aspects of this, and I think changing the narrative around um, just kind of manufacturing, right? So is with the parents, and the manufacturing jobs that you know were around when my parents were working, as you just hit the nail on the head, completely different than manufacturing today. I think too, being able to showcase to not only high school kids but their parents, like, hey, here's an idea. If you come and work with us, we'll train you, we'll apprentice you, we'll do whatever it is. You'll be getting paid while you're getting trained,
Yep.
right? You'll have no college debt. So let's just take the 4-year period you would be in college, right? When you get out of that 4-year period, by the way, again, reminder, you're getting paid that whole
All right.
time.
Oh, yeah.
Once you hit that end of 4-year period, here's your starting salary. Let's take that out another 5, 6, 7 years. Here's the career you're going to have by doing this with no debt. And it opens a lot of people's eyes, because I think they have this misconception that, it's dirty, it's low paying, you're not going to have fun. It's just going to be a dreadful experience, and that's good. I mean, the I like to, there's a couple pieces of law that I wrote, right? Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm able to sit down with my kids and go, you see that, and it's not very exciting, trust me, but you see these two lines of law, like Dad wrote that and got that passed to get included. Same type of thing, like you can have kids drive down the street and you see that big water tower up there, like that was me,
Yeah.
right? Like I did that. It's not this manufacturing is not a dreadful job. It's a awesome art craft that
Oh,
provides
yeah.
an
Yeah.
unbelievable career with a lot of money if you work hard, and just changing that narrative. And again, getting out into the community, volunteering, sponsoring scholarships, like you said, volunteering in the classroom, I think would open people's eyes, particularly parents, and the high school kids. Like the high school kids get, hey, this is really fun.
Yeah.
Like, I really enjoy this. And by the way, I'm good at it. Right. And be able to go back to mom and dad and say, hey, John Ward from, the tank company, or, whatever company STI member we're talking about, came into our classroom and was teaching me about welding. Like, I think it's something I really want to look into.
Yeah.
And then they
It,
kind of
but,
go
but
and look at your company and find out you're legit, you're crushing it. Like,
yeah. Yeah. Welding's an art. I tell everyone that.
oh,
I
yep,
mean, you're an artisan. I mean, it's not, it can be a tough job on certain days, but working with your hands and the pleasure and enjoyment of building things. That's what a
completely.
lot of people get out of it. I know my boys, they thoroughly enjoy working in our shop environment. They're moving around, they're doing things. They look at what I do and they're sitting there going, okay, Dad, you do a lot of emails.
Yeah.
You're on a lot of virtual calls. You make a lot of phone calls and you're
Yep.
in a lot of meetings. I mean, sitting
Yep.
at a desk,
Well,
exciting.
and that's changing some of that misconception too. Like, funny thing, and we can hit on this, I think, at the end as we're wrapping up on things to kind of pay attention to moving forward. But we're in the midst of a government shutdown that just kicked off, and my daughter texted me this morning from the school bus and said, "Hey, Dad, you have to go to work today." And, I respond, yeah, well, like, why wouldn't I? And she goes, oh, the government shut down. So I didn't know if that, like, completely shut you down too. Right. So just changing some of, like, this is what we do. Right.
Yes.
Changing some of that perception
Yeah.
is important.
Yeah. So looking ahead, what were some of your biggest takeaways from our fly into DC regarding the current sentiment in Congress towards American manufacturing?
Yeah, no, I think, and again, thank you to you. Thank you to all the other members of STI, SPFA that came out. Highly successful day and a half. We had, I think, if memory serves me correct, almost 90 meetings across a day and a half. So we were running you guys ragged. Hopefully
Oh
your
yeah,
shoes didn't fall apart when you got home. But
couple
that
blisters, but it was all worth it.
that's how we like to do things here at the Vogel Group, right? If you're going to come in town, we're going to make it worth your while, and the impact is going to be big. And I think we definitely saw interest on both sides of the aisle. Be it particularly focused on the steel industry, be it manufacturing in general, of interest in getting manufacturing back, right? And protecting jobs in their districts or states, expanding businesses and jobs in their districts and states. So uh, the appetite is there. I think we need to keep giving them that wind in their
Yeah,
sail to keep pushing forward, right? Because as we talked about at the beginning, tariffs and trade every day is taking up a lot of space. There's a ton of other issues going on right now that members of Congress in particular have to be aware of, right? So we want to make sure that trade tariffs, workforce development, domestic manufacturing, steel industry related, provisions and issues stay at the top of their priority list because every day there's a new issue kind of popping on
Yeah.
that list. So,
Well, it was interesting talking to all the different individuals we met with. As I'm explaining what we do, you could just see that blank stare in their eyes. And when I got to the point of saying, okay, the equipment we make produces everything you see on the shelf at Home Depot or Lowe's. So
yep,
paints, additives, glues, cardboard, plastics. The light bulb clicked on and they said, whoa. So basically, everything we're used to using on a daily basis, the infrastructure, our homes, everything, it goes through your type of processing equipment. And I said, yes. And they said,
yep,
got it. You guys are
yep,
at the ground zero of making things in America.
well,
And they said, yes, we need to protect that. We need to be
yeah,
on top of it. And they understood that pressure vessels and heat exchangers and tanks need to be high on the list for American infrastructure, which was
completely.
fantastic. So,
No, it definitely, I think during the fly-in too, we were able to, and I know I wasn't in every meeting with you and you weren't in every meeting that I was in, but we were able to kind of explain, like if we were meeting with a member of Congress who represented a big agricultural district, we were able to explain to them like, hey, without us, your farmers aren't farming.
right.
Like, and vice versa. If we were in, let's just throw out a Texas district and you're without us, the oil and gas industry
Is
isn't
dead.
oiling and gassing, right? Like, so being
All
able to,
everything you're using, hair products, your makeup, your clothes, without what we do, none of that's made.
yep,
It's not produced. It can't
completely.
happen. So that was
And to
great.
your point, I think that really opens people's eyes when
Yeah.
you can kind of shake it down to just we might be small, right? You might not really pay attention to us on a daily basis, but you should because without us, the daily basis doesn't happen.
Right.
So,
So I know we touched on the November date that the Supreme Court's going to be reviewing the tariff case. What other things that we should be looking at over the next 6 to 12 months that will affect American manufacturing?
yeah, I think there's a couple things going on, right? So Supreme Court case definitely a huge aspect of the trade and tariff fight. I don't think you're starting to see some other countries start to change their trade philosophy these days. I think as a result of what the Trump administration is doing. So paying attention to what EU starts doing, what China
Right.
starts doing, what places, big economies, right? India starts doing on the trade front could be potentially impactful to us. Definitely, you look at some of the foreign wars going on, right? Russia, Ukraine. You're starting to see, I think, Russia send some drones and airplanes across borders just to kind of see what happens. Like, who knows if
Yeah.
that expands and blows up, that could have huge implications for the world economy and in our domestic economy as well. But here at home as well. So I briefly mentioned we just kicked off a government shutdown, if you will, today. I say if you will because there are some agencies like U.S. Trade Representative's office. They're not furloughing any employee. Everyone's coming to work, continuing to work as hard as they have been up until this point. And then you look at places like the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they're furloughing every employee except for one,
Oh,
right? To
wow.
pretty much, I think, just
Okay.
turn the light on and off at the beginning and end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And so some of the shutdown depends on what agency we're talking about, but a lot of that could potentially impact our industry even further. You look at EPA, depending on kind of how they handle offices underneath them. I know we partner with them on certain programs in a lot of cases. Some of that stuff might get delayed as a result. So we're hearing everything under the sun. It could last till Friday. A couple days from now, it could last for, I was talking to some chiefs of staff on Capitol Hill yesterday, and to a T, all of them said we're taking the over 21 days.
Oh, really?
So
Wow. Okay.
we could get into a multi-week, month, month and a half,
Yeah.
type of shutdown, and then I think
Because
you'll really
the
start.
last two shutdowns were what, 2013 and 2018, correct?
Correct.
And
Yep.
2018, I think that was a 31 day.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that broke a record. 2018, 2019 shutdown
Yeah.
broke a record. I think if memory serves me correct, it was 35 days.
Okay. 35. Yep.
Um, but that's when when it starts getting that long, it can start impacting all sorts of things like uh, shipping, you know, plane travel, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Inspections, port inspections could start getting impacted, on some of that stuff the longer we go. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. And then the other big, massive issue coming up, sooner than I think a lot of us are expecting, just because the daily grind is there's been so much going on, is the midterm elections, right? So I live in Virginia. Next month, they have off-year elections, so the governor's election is next month. Most of the legislative elections next month as well in Virginia. That's going to be a big bellwether, I think, for kind of the upcoming
Where,
midterm
yeah.
elections next
Where, where,
year.
where are folks leaning right now?
Yep,
Yep.
where things are headed. Virginia is a very purple state, right? So you get a lot of you can glean a lot of information kind of on how that goes. But the midterms are going to have a massive impact on the rest of the president's term, right? You're starting to see them put a lot of pressure on Republican states to redistrict their congressional maps to try to shore up how many Republicans are going to be in the House of Representatives. I think at this point, most people on both sides of the aisle think that Republicans will hold the Senate. Just based on the seats that are up, the states that are up for election next year. A third of the seats are up every 2 years in the Senate. That the Republicans should keep control of the Senate. Again, it's a pretty slim majority right now in the Senate. I don't think people are expecting that to change too much. So you'll still have a razor thin Republican majority in the Senate. But then on the House side,
Yeah, that could change.
historically speaking, the president's party gets their butts handed to them in the midterm elections. I definitely think a lot of people are expecting that it's either again going to be super super thin, or Democrats might have a little bit of a wind in their sails in the election, and that
Yeah.
could flip. And if it does, then you're probably looking at more impeachment efforts in the House. But if the Senate's Republican, that doesn't go anywhere. So you
Right.
just turn into this kind of political gridlock, I think, if that would happen, which again would impact us and our industry in a large way
Yeah. Yeah.
if everything kind of grinds to a halt and becomes a political mess. So
Last tough question.
yeah.
All right. Are there any upcoming legislative opportunities or threats that could significantly impact our industry?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think the biggest thing right now is the government funding issue and the shutdown. Depending on, if Republicans and Democrats can get together and figure this out here in the very short term, I think that provides some tailwinds to the normal appropriations process. But again, if, as we were talking before, if this turns into a month and a half long thing, I think the bad blood is just going to get worse and worse between the two parties. An interesting thing too that people aren't really talking about is so we have the shutdown. I think the latest estimate I saw that they'll furlough like around 750,000 federal employees across different agencies. Um, so this is the start of the new fiscal year today, which is why the government's shutting down because they didn't pass
Right.
funding to move that forward. Is a part of kind of the Doge process at the beginning of the year that, I mean, honestly seems like that was 10 years ago at
It
this
does
point.
really. So
Uh,
so much
uh,
chatter
uh,
early on, and now it's nothing. Not really hearing a
exactly.
peep out of them.
150,000 federal employees took buyouts. Um, that starts today.
Yeah.
So we just lost 150,000 federal employees across the spectrum. I'm assuming a good majority of those are long-term government employees, right? So in our case, that could be long-term people in the program offices that we partner with EPA on,
Right.
certification or, whatever the programs might be. And that can have a massive impact on us as well. So I think the key, I would say, in terms of legislatively, we'll have to wait and see kind of how this shutdown plays out. But in terms of regulations, trade is going to continue to be a massive issue. But some of these furloughs and retirements, if you guys are starting to see on the ground a delay in some of these programs that used to crank, it's important for you to let STI, SPFA know, let me
Yeah.
know, let our legislative committee know so that we can be relaying those messages. Because I think those are the type of issues that can unfortunately kind
Kind
of
of fall under the
slide.
radar. Yeah.
Yep. Slide a little bit, get swept under the rug, and no one really talks about them until it's too late, right? So if we can kind of keep that conversation going about the impact on some of these things and the need to continue some of these programs, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, listen, in closing, I just want a little word of advice from you, okay? Uh, we both know, we've seen it. I mean, people are on pins and needles right now. What advice, you've been on the Hill for a long time now, what advice would you give to folks that are just nervous about where we are as a country? What would you tell them to help
Yeah.
them get through where we are right now today?
And I will. I won't tell you not to be nervous. I won't tell you to not. But we elected officials for a purpose, right? And that's to represent us when these decisions are being made. Stay engaged, right? Don't give up.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
think, unfortunately, historically, we've seen a lot of people just throw their hands up and I'm not going to vote, right?
Yeah.
Like they don't listen to me anyway.
Your vote matters.
Forget it.
Yeah.
You saw, John, our meetings during the fly-in, they matter.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
offices want to hear from us. They know they need to hear from us. But I guess my piece of advice would be, please don't give up. Vote every chance you get to vote. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for or how to vote, but take advantage of that. And then when you have elected officials, go educate them. They can't
Yes.
be experts on every issue that comes across their plate. So if you and other members of STI, SPFA can be their resources when it comes to manufacturing, steel issues, trade issues, like that's how we start making an impact.
Yeah.
So you can be frustrated, you can be nervous, you can be mad, happy, whatever it is, just please don't give up and please stay engaged.
Yeah.
Would be
And
my
that
advice.
is some excellent sound advice because they want to hear from you. I mean, they are our elected officials and they want to hear
Totally.
what we're going through so that they can take that and represent us properly up on the Hill.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
and
appreciate
I would
that.
say, John, they need to hear from us,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
No, that's
yeah.
great. Well, Steve, this has been an absolute pleasure. Always enjoy talking with you, engaging with you, and look forward to the next time we can get together.
Absolutely. Would love to see you again in DC here in the near
Oh, yeah.
future. And anytime we need to do another podcast, maybe it'll be tomorrow because some other big issue will pop up. We'll
Yeah,
need to jump
you
back
never
on.
know. Yeah, you never know. So, yeah, definitely
Happy
look
to do
forward
it
to
at
it.
any point.
Yes, yes. And you will always be one of my first calls whenever I come up to DC. Enjoy
I
it.
love it.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Forged in Focus. A big thank you to Stephen Borg with the Vogel Group for their insights and advocacy on behalf of American steel fabricators. As we heard today, the challenges facing our industry are real, but so are the opportunities. Whether it's fighting for fair trade, investing in workforce development, or securing infrastructure funding, we all have a role to play in shaping the future of American manufacturing. If you enjoyed this episode and conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your network. Let's keep the momentum going. Until next time, I'm John Ward. Stay strong, stay focused, and keep forging ahead.